Alright, hopefully this is the last video on this Hyundai Azera. Hyundai Azera. Okay, I don't like these Hyundais at all. We replaced the ABS pump. Go watch the videos before on this channel about that. I'm not gonna waste time talking about it. So the reason why we went with a junkyard one is because you can't get one. Not from the dealership, not from auto parts stores. You just can't get one. You either trust in someone on eBay, and we didn't even see one on eBay, but I'm sure at different times someone else probably saw one on eBay, right? We found one at a local junkyard. The guy at the junkyard said when he handed it to us, this is hard to get to. I really struggled taking it off. It was a pain in the butt. And he handed it to us like, thank God this is over with, so I can go home now. And I know he kind of was a little rough manhandling it when he took it off, because the threads on one of them was leaking when I put it on. This one right here was leaking, and your hands will end up like this, and this stuff is hard to get off. So we really glued the living crap out of this stuff. And this is like a JB weld. I'm still waiting for it to dry a little better back here. I don't know if you could see me moving it. It's like a putty, and it needs to be hard before I try to put fluid in here. So it's leaking here, but I covered the whole thing because the leak here will spread. So I had to put a coat of putty all across the top and as far up on this line, this particular line that was leaking as I could. I don't like doing this crap. This is crap that I normally do for my own car, not for anybody else's. Normally I just give it back to them and say, you need a pump, bye. But this is what we put on it. To start off with, we went with, they call it plumber's tape. Permatex makes it. It's called thread sealant with PTFE. And there's your part number 80632. So we put some of that on the actual threads to it, right? And then we put some real plumber's tape, some threaded tape around that. And then we put some more of this liquid plumber's tape on the outside of the threaded tape. So it was liquid tape, liquid plumber's tape, the real plumber's tape, plus some more liquid tape on the threads, and then shoved it in the hole, tightened it down, and I rethreaded it. And like I showed in the video before, you need a rethreading tool kit. You need a rethreading tool kit that has this size, 10 by 1 inch, 1.0. So most of them will go like 10 by 125, 8, and they'll jump from like an 8 125. They'll skip that 9 125 and they'll go straight to a 10 25. So most of them will go 8 125 to 10 125. So I had to order this kit because you needed a 10 by 10 to rethread that. So I rethreaded it to make sure that the threads were good and clean. Then I did the liquid plumber's tape, liquid real plumber's tape, more liquid plumber's tape, stick it in the hole, thread it down real good down in there. And then I felt like it was still a little bit of leakage. So I had to wait for the fluid to drain out. I put a little bit of fluid to test it, and there was still a little bit of leakage, but it would only leak when the pedal was being pumped and pressure was being applied. This is hydraulic brake pressures. So when hydraulic pressure was being applied, you would see a little bit just seeping out. And I knew that that would eventually just get worse and worse and turn into more and more of a leak. So I said, not good enough. Let's figure out how to seal that a little more permanently. So then I went and got some JB Weld. And this is JB Weld right here. And this is their water weld, world's strongest bond, they claim, right? It will hold to 1,300 psi. Normal JB Weld will only hold for 900 psi. This water weld will hold to 1,300.
Will set underwater, they say. You could set this actually underwater. We've been raining a lot lately, so that's why I got this. We got a storm coming this way. Works on fiberglass, PCV, plastic, copper, brass, iron, aluminum. Great for plumbing tubes, shower drains, fuel tanks, marine boats, portable water tanks. Water resistant to water, oil, gas, diesel, and hydraulic fluids. Most chemicals. Keyword here, hydraulic fluids, right? If it's resistant to gas, that says a lot, right? But hydraulic fluids, right? Made in USA, certified by the NSF. So we bought 2 of these, as you can see, 1, 2, to cover the whole top of this thing. Obviously, the instructions are pretty easy. It's just pretty much clean the area, mix it well, mix the putty, and it's like Play-Doh. You just mix it in your hand and apply it. It's real hard to wash off. Normally you would say, Danny, why didn't you use gloves? Because you don't get a good feel for it with gloves, and the gloves start to stick and pull up, and it seems smart to use gloves, but then you use them and then you end up wanting to take them off. Like, these gloves are stupid, I'm taking them off, I'll just figure out how to wash my hands. And so back here, it's still a little soft in this back corner. See how I'm able to move it back there? Still a little mushy. It needs to harden up. It needs to harden up all the way down back here. In this back area is what I'm waiting on to dry up. And then once that dries up completely to where it's hard, where I can't mush down on it anymore, then I can put fluid in it. But back here, it's way too pliable still. It's nowhere near being hard enough yet. And I did put it on pretty thick, so that's what's taking it a while to dry up. Here it's already starting to harden up pretty good. I know I wouldn't have done this because if I didn't know the pump worked. The pump works, because now to get these lines off, you're going to have to chip away at all this once it hardens up to get to the actual thread and be able to take them off. But this pump actually works. So it's just a matter of it not leaking. And when I installed the pump, I went to the back tire and I saw if there was fluid coming out of the passenger rear. And there was. So the pump is working. It's just a matter of don't leak from that second line right there. So if this hardens up and it doesn't leak, forget about it. It's a done deal, and that pump will last another 200,000 miles and it won't ever be an issue again. This car will get junked before that pump goes bad, hopefully. But yeah, now we have to wait for that to dry. We're gonna go wash this off with like gasoline and a really hard brush or brake cleaner, whatever, some kind of strong chemical that isn't good for your skin. Excuse me. So that's what we need to do, and then we can put fresh fluid in it and start bleeding the brakes and get it back down on the ground, and we'll be done. Anyways, thanks for watching. This was supposed to be a quick put on new rotors, put on new calipers in the front, and new rotors and pads in the front and the back job, right? In and out. 1, 2, 3, bring it in for a quick brake job, and it's out. This is the longest 1, 2, 3 brake job I've ever gotten involved with. It came in, the guy said, I just need front calipers and rotors and pads. All right, I'll put them on. I put them on, and then that back passenger wheel was getting no brake fluid. He wanted the brake fluid flushed out too, and nothing was coming out of that passenger rear. And I wasn't getting any fluid out of there. And the driver's rear, and the passenger front were locking up. When you would hit the brake, they would lock up, and you'd have to crack the bleeder to get them to spin again. So that's when it turned into less diag time. Is it the ABS module? Is it a clog in one of the lines? What's going on? And we start pinpointing it. It turned out it was the pump. My diagnosis was correct. It needed an ABS pump. And then we can't find an ABS pump anywhere. He's calling the dealership. They can't help him. We're calling every auto parts store in the land. They can't help us. We're looking on eBay, Amazon. They can't help us. We started going, obviously, on a junkyard hunt. And finally, we found a junkyard that had it. The guy's not cheap. The guy would have just bought a brand new one at the dealership if they would have given it to him. They didn't even make it available to him. So we were forced to work with this from the junkyard. It was the only junkyard that even had one. We called several. So these Hyundai Azeras are not very popular. Look on YouTube. You don't find a bunch of YouTube videos on Hyundai Azeras. It's just not a common car. Most of them are in the junkyard where they belong. These 3.8s, these cars, not too fond of them. This was when Hyundai was still not what Hyundai is today. Hyundai's gotten a lot better, but these cars, not so much. The 2007 Hyundai Azera, don't think so. This was a runt in the litter for sure. Anyways, the guy's annoyed because I've had the car for a couple days, but it's the process of waiting for, us finding the parts, diagnosing the problem. Every day we're working out here in the rain, and it's like if it rains, I can't work on it. Normally, if it wasn't so muggy, this stuff would have already dried. It says it takes 1 hour cure time, but that's 1 hour under what weather conditions? This stuff's been sitting for over an hour and it's still mushy. So I just keep coming back and checking it and checking it and checking it. So far we got 2 hours in and it's still not dry. The point is, anybody else would have said, screw you, pay me for the rotors and the pads, take it somewhere else, I got better things to do, right? This guy goes to the same barber that I go to, and he's a nice guy. He's a veteran. So the last thing I want to do is be an asshole and be like, screw you, take your car. But this is the worst time ever for me to get stuck with this problem. I don't have time for this. I'm already backed up trying to get caught up with my work. And this thing set me back another week on this stupid problem. Just trying to do what I can for the guy. Because if I could tell him, go to the dealership and bring me a brand new ABS pump that won't leak, I would have. And then that line, it goes all the way back to the back passenger wheel and it goes up under the tank. So you got to drop the exhaust, drop the tank, all that crap to replace that line if that line needs to be replaced too. It's not easy work. It's quite time-consuming stuff. So he doesn't want to have to pay for that, and I don't want to have to do that job. So we're trying to putty away, right? Because the pump is good. It just leaks from that line because they were a little too rough on it. And no matter how much I rethread it, that aluminum was already compromised and stretched out. So now it would have to go to a bigger thread, to a thicker line. Like I said, that line is not an easy line to replace. So I don't want to try to stick a bigger line in it and have to replace the whole line. There was just enough play for a little bit of leak. It wasn't even a lot of leak, but that little bit of leak was enough to where it's not acceptable. So that's where we got into this whole putty situation. Now we have to wait for the putty to dry. We supposedly have this tropical storm headed our way, pain in the butt. We're working out here and doing the best we can. What can I tell you? It is what it is. It's the way the cookie crumbles. But I'll say this, the customer's to the point where he's annoyed. Like, should I call an Uber to go to the airport? What do you think? What do you think? You think I want this here? You think it's not in my way? You think I wouldn't be glad to give it back to you and be done and move on with my life? Of course you have to call an Uber, and I'm not happy about it either. Duh. Like, seriously. If it was ready, when it comes to your mechanic, when it's ready, trust me, he'll tell you it's ready. He wants it gone. This is very valuable real estate right here this car is taking up. I would much rather have another car here in its place. I would much rather be focused on other more income-producing activities than your little MacGyver putty job here. Trying to be nice to people, and then they get so caught up in their emotions of, oh, this car and what's taking so long and why isn't it ready yet? The worst thing you can do is annoy a mechanic that's actually going above and beyond to try to help you. It's the worst thing you can do. My advice to you, if you've been through that or you're going to go through that in the future, stay calm. Back off. As soon as it's done, he's going to get it to you. Breathe. Woosah. Relax. Calmate. That's my advice to you. If I right now start pouring fluid and pumping this thing up, it's going to leak no matter how good this JB Weld putty is, because I didn't give it enough time to cure. And I'm working under not the best weather conditions. So I have to let it cure. I have a heat gun. We put a heat gun on it. The heat gun, all it did was make it mushier. I put a fan on it. The fan was helping a little bit, but it wasn't really like speeding it up. Best thing to do is just leave it alone, keep checking it, and wait for it to dry on its own. When I put my finger on that and it doesn't feel mushy anymore, it feels hardened, that's when I can put brake fluid in it, bleed it, put it back down on the ground, and give it to him. At that point, if it still leaks, I can honestly look the guy eye to eye and say, I did everything I could for you. Sorry. There is nothing else I can do for you here other than replace it with a brand new pump, ABS pump, and a brand new line. Hopefully this does it. Patience is a virtue. Patience is a virtue. If we're patient and we wait for that to dry right, I'm pretty confident that will take care of the little leak we had, and he'll be good to go. At least good enough to get it drivable to where he can drive it into the dealership and trade it in for something else that's not a Hyundai Azera. Thanks for watching. Catch y'all on the next one. Peace.